Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. I sat at my desk and recalled the 30 years since our wedding, as well as the honeymoon and the best memories of my life. As I reflect on these cherished memories of our honeymoon in Hawaii with Maggie, I am overcome by a deep sense of nostalgia and gratitude. It was an extraordinary and truly magical time that will forever hold a special place in my heart. From the very beginning, there was a feeling that we were in an enchanted kingdom that washes away all the worries of the world, leaving a serenity that cannot be described in words. Walking hand in hand along the pristine beaches of Waikiki, where gentle waves lapped at our feet, we were absorbed in the beauty of the world around us. The fragrant scent of plumeria permeated the air, serving as a constant reminder of the romance and tranquility that enveloped us. However, not only did the captivating landscapes make our honeymoon unforgettable, but the experiences we shared were imprinted into the fabric of our soul. Exploring lush rainforests and stumbling upon hidden waterfalls has been a revelation of the greatness of Mother Nature. Standing together, we marveled at the unbridled power and splendor that surrounded us. Our villa on Maui, located on top of a cliff, gave us panoramic views that seemed to stretch into infinity. Each sunset was a masterpiece, painting the sky in bright hues, and in those precious moments when we clung to each other, our hearts were filled with an overwhelming feeling of love and devotion to each other. And the nights. Oh, the nights were a symphony of romance, starting with dinner by flickering candlelight on the beach under a canopy of stars, when we enjoyed the exquisite taste of fresh seafood and island delicacies. But it was the gentle look in Maggie's eyes that made these evenings truly magical. Hawaii has become more than just a destination. It has become the epitome of our love story, a chapter filled with cherished memories and shared dreams created just for the two of us. Remembering our honeymoon, I relive the beauty and depth of our connection at that time. Hawaii has served as a catalyst for our love, strengthening our bond and giving us moments of incomparable joy and tranquility. It is with sincere gratitude that I keep the precious memories we created together in this oasis of romance. Now, 30 years later, when I was lost in my thoughts, my secretary came into my office and looked at me for a while, looking out the window, and then asked, "Jason, what or who should we thank for your good mood lately? Did you win the lottery or something? Do you want to share it?" At that moment, I realized that I was smiling and had actually been in a good mood for the past 2 weeks. I explained that recently my wife had become very attentive and loving, and for the first time in many years I felt appreciated and loved. In conclusion, I said that I felt like I was on my second honeymoon, and for the first time in many years I was looking forward to being with her all the time and couldn't get her out of my head. Over the past 2 weeks, I've been calling my Maggie several times a day to hear her voice and tell her how much I love and miss her. He acted like a high school teenager in love, but I didn't care. I was happy again and I didn't want it to stop. Maggie and I have a strong marriage, but a 30-year relationship can become less exciting and more mundane. But for the past 2 weeks, Maggie has been frisky, wanted to make love almost every night, and did things with me that she hadn't done in years. I have never had any suspicions or thoughts that the change in her affection is anything other than the revival of our marriage. I planned to surprise her with a romantic evening and left work early. With a smile on my face, I paid for 2 dozen roses at the florist and filled out a card with a heart expressing my love, then stopped by the wine store and bought a bottle of her favorite wine along with a large box of chocolate-covered cherries, also her favorite. Tonight, I will not only tell Maggie how much I love her, how happy she makes me, but also surprise her with a 7-day cruise that I bought for us in honor of our love. Smiling and bouncing as I walked, I entered my house through the garage. When I went up the steps to the kitchen, instead of my loving wife, Maggie Brandy, I saw our 29-year-old daughter sitting at our kitchen table. I smiled, kissed her on the forehead, and said hello. "Hi, baby, where's your mom?" I've always heard all the guys say that the hardest thing to hear from a woman are these following words, but until you actually hear them, you'll never really understand. "Dad, we need to talk." 2 weeks earlier. "Brandy, I'm not sure about that. I love your dad very much, and I'm afraid that if I go through this, I'll hurt him. Mom, Dad loves you and he'll understand. You said yourself that you need something more than you got before, and Dad's not getting any younger. I know he'll understand your needs and let you have this one-time treat. Brandy, there's no way I can go in front of your father and tell him I'm on a date with another man. I just can't do it." Then let me do it. Alexander will be waiting for you at the restaurant at 7 in the evening, and you will be ready to leave by 6 in the evening. When Dad gets home, I'll be here and explain everything to him, and you'll get the experience you crave. Honey, yes, I agreed to this date, but I have my doubts. This is wrong, and I shouldn't go. How am I going to be able to look your father in the eye for the next 2 weeks, knowing that I've agreed to a date with another man? Well, I can suggest that you don't tell him anything, but during these 2 weeks show him how much you love him. Let him know that he has nothing to worry about, and when I explain everything, he will understand that what you are doing is not related to love, but only with a new friendship and a little fun lovemaking. Turn to him and shake his world, and when I explain the situation that evening, he will welcome you back with open arms. Believe me, Dad loves you and is ready to do anything for you. He always gave you what you wanted. That's how he showed his love for you, Mom. I guess so, and maybe you're right. I mean, it's just one date, and that doesn't mean I'm leaving your dad for another man. A fun night 30 years later shouldn't be a problem. I'm going to show your dad how wonderful he is and how much I love him every night until date night. And then when I get back to him, I'm going to try to make him the happiest man in the world. Mom, just make him feel loved and appreciated. He is a great guy and will give you this one experience. And now I have to go home to cook dinner for Mike. Thanks, baby, and say hi to Mike. When are you two going to give us grandchildren? Soon. We've already talked and plan to start working on this in a few months, Brandy said before going home. Maggie was sitting alone in the art studio that Jason had built for her behind their house, before his recent project. Lately, she has been experiencing difficulties with creativity, as the thought of being with another man weighed on her. Guilt blocked her creative abilities until Maggie remembered Brandy's words, and suddenly her brushes came to life, covering the canvas with bright colors and emotional landscapes. Suddenly, she felt confident that she was doing the right thing for herself, and that her husband would give her this experience. She found herself talking to herself, sitting alone, feeling peace overcome guilt. Jason might get angry at first, but I know I can make him understand. I really love this man, and he was such a wonderful husband and father. I will be the best wife and show him how much I love him. The beginning of love for Jason. On the first night of my plan to shower him with love, I put on his favorite baby doll nightgown after taking a shower, styling my hair and spending some time on makeup. She met Jason when he entered the house, in a high-heeled nightgown, and led him straight into the bedroom, where she undressed. Maggie, it was the best meeting at home in recent years. What's the occasion, baby? I just wanted to show you how special you are and how much I love you. Did you like it? I liked it, and it hasn't been so long that I forgot how much I missed him. Over the next 2 weeks, our sex life reached a new level of arousal, and Jason was a new man, smiling, laughing, telling jokes, and just as loving as before. I was happier than I had been in a long time, and I reconsidered my plans for the date night again. I even told Brandy how much everything had changed, and that maybe I didn't need this experience anymore because Dad and I had gotten our mood back. Mom, this is great, but don't give up yet. Let's see how the next 2 weeks go. Just enjoy each other and see where it leads. There is no need to cancel anything yet. Let's see how you feel in 2 weeks, and you can always cancel the meeting at the last moment. I'm sure Alexander will understand, but you have to realize that you may never have such a chance again. Okay, maybe you're right. Tell me more about Alexander. I know he's your friend's father, but tell me again about his situation. Of course, Mom. When he found out that his wife, Mary, had an inoperable brain tumor, he took a vacation from work and spent every second with her until her death. She was the love of his life, and after her death, he turned into a shell of his former self. Except for work, he did not leave the house and turned into a recluse, not communicating with his family or friends. Her death had created a hole in his heart that he couldn't fill. In the last 3 years, he has become depressed and quiet. When Mary and I suggested that he leave the house and start dating, he explained that he did not know anyone and did not know how to be with anyone except his wife, Mary. Mom, when I listened to this wonderful man, tears came to my eyes, and it occurred to me that I might have a solution for both of you. I told him about your deep love for Dad for 30 years and what a wonderful wife you were. I told him that over the years your sex life has become stagnant and Dad has slowed down with age. She told me how we discussed the possibility of going on a date to cheer up a little, but not for a long-term romance, but in order to become a friend and maybe for something more, but nothing long-term, because you will never leave your father. When he saw your picture, his eyes lit up. He smiled and asked if I believed that you would want to go on a date with him. Here's our conversation. Mr. Connor, I assure you, when I show Mom your picture and tell her about you, she will not miss this chance. But she's a few years older than you. Won't that be a problem? No, if she looks the same, not at all. I would love to spend some time with her. What about your father? Would he really let her date me? After all, this is his wife. Like I said, leave it to me. Dad will do everything for Mom to make her happy, and she needs it no less than you do. I think you two can help each other and become good friends. Leave it to me, and I'll arrange it. I'll talk to her, and if she agrees, I'll give you her number, and then you can arrange a date and a night together. Nights? What do you mean? Mr. Connor, you're both adults. You both need each other. Be creative and plan an evening and a night together. So you see, he thinks you're beautiful and would like to spend the night with you if you're interested. I'll give him your cell phone number and tell him to call you during the day. He really looks good and is about 10 years younger than you, and I know that you will be happy. He just needs companionship and a girlfriend, and I know that you can help each other. The next day, Alexander called Maggie and, after a wonderful conversation, invited her to become his companion and spend the night with him. When he told her how beautiful she was in the photo, and how wonderful it would be if she went on a date with him, she felt like a schoolgirl. The excitement of her doing something so unusual and his flirting made her panties wet. She agreed to a date and told him that she was looking forward to meeting him. He said he would pick her up, but she replied that she would prefer to meet him at a restaurant. They corresponded daily and flirted with each other more and more as the date night approached. By the evening of the date, Maggie's text messages would not have stood the simplest test of his wife's fidelity. She was constantly excited, imagining what she had to do. She tried not to forget about Jason and put more and more energy into their lovemaking every night. Dad, we need to talk. I loved my daughter and thought she was the most beautiful girl in the world. I was so proud of how she developed into the woman she is today. I would have liked to spend more time with her when she was growing up, but I worked hard to provide them with a good life and tried to always be with her as much as possible. I smiled when he saw her, but I was confused. Honey, what are you doing here and where is your mom? I said, and she watched me put 24 roses on the table, along with a bottle of wine and a box of chocolates. I have a special surprise for your mom tonight, and I can't wait to see her. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out travel plans and tickets for a 7-day cruise. I'm taking your mom on a 7-day cruise on the new yacht Lyubov, and I can't wait to see her face when she finds out about it. Don't say anything when she gets home. I want to surprise her. Dad? When she called me Daddy, I always smiled, remembering how she was a little girl and sat on my lap. But I realized that something was wrong. There were tears in her eyes, and she was panting all over, worried about what I was going to hear. Dad, we need to talk, she said, and a tear rolled down her eye. She saw the worry on my face. What happened? Is something wrong with Mom? No, Mom's fine. Please just sit down and let me explain everything. I sat down and looked into her tear-filled eyes as she tried to continue. After a moment, she spoke. Dad, you know how much Mom loves you, and she's been telling me how good things have been between you lately. Yes, and I love her too. That's why I want to show her how I feel. Now, seeing her tears, I realized that everything she was going to tell me was not going the way she planned. I'm sorry, Daddy, but Mom has a date. I sat in silence, hearing the words, but not understanding their meaning. Her tears flowed as my brain connected the dots, causing anger. Brandy, what are you talking about? Where is your mother? I demanded in a loud voice that made her recoil from me in fright. Mom loves you very much, Daddy. And you may take it wrong, but Mom went on a date with another man and won't be home until tomorrow. She couldn't tell you that on her own, and I volunteered to tell you because she couldn't hurt you. Just one night, and tomorrow Mom will be back. Is this a joke? You can't be serious. Your mom would never do anything to betray me that much. She was so loving and we were so close. I can't believe it. Dad, she loves you. She just had to do one thing. After 30 years of marriage, she was uneasy and needed something more in life, at least once. Nothing will change between you, except that she will love you even more for giving it to her. I stared at my daughter. Brandy, why did you get involved in this? Your mother shouldn't have dragged you into this, and I should be discussing this with her, not you. How did she get you into all this? Dad, you know that Mom and I have always been very close and we tell each other everything. She told me that things had slowed down between you in the bedroom, and that she no longer felt wanted and needed to be aroused. My friend's father lost his wife a few years ago. He was so depressed and needed to communicate too, and I kind of introduced them. I got up quickly, knocking over a chair behind me. What the hell? Are you kidding? Did you introduce them and arrange for your mother to date another man? Is that what you're saying? Lowering her head and looking at the floor, she was silent. Now I was pacing back and forth in the kitchen, trying to make sense of this disaster. Damn it, Brandy. Answer me, I shouted, standing over her. Did you set this up? My wife, your mother, is on a date with your friend's father, and you arranged it. Saliva flew out of my mouth at these angry words. I'm sorry, Daddy, but yes. When you say that, it sounds bad, but I did it out of love for my friend's mom and dad. Holy hell, what have you done? Love for your friend's mom and dad? What about your love for me? Am I a piece of trash that you can shit on and expect me to accept whatever comes into your head? Where is she now? And what did you mean when you said she wouldn't be home until tomorrow? Dad, he took her to a restaurant. I do not know which one, and then they will spend the night together. But only this time. She'll be back tomorrow. And Daddy, she only loves you. All she's been telling me for the last 2 weeks is how much she loves you and doesn't want you to get hurt because of it. It's just a date and a one-night stand. She knew that you would understand and give her this one time. Is that all? Like a moron, I believed that the last 2 weeks of her new courtship were caused by love. But now you're telling me that this was her way to get rid of guilt and make me her puppet? Well, it won't do any good, I assure you. Still in tears, she begged. Dad, it's not like that at all. She never pretended or hurt you. On the contrary, she did everything possible to let you know that she loves you. Daddy, can't you just give her one night? You know she loves you and can't live without you. She told me she was looking forward to your retirement and spending time with your grandchildren. Mike and I are planning to have children, and we need both of you. Well, isn't that pretty damn unusual? That ship sailed away the moment she agreed to a date with some man who wasn't me. Who is this guy? My friend Mary's dad. He's a really good guy and you're going to like him, Daddy. I think you have a lot in common. Oh yes, we could become such good friends. So do you think I would be able to make friends with a man who is deliberately dating a married woman, my wife? Maybe we can become drinking buddies and I can let him satisfy your mom on weekends. Is that what you two have planned for me? Brandy sank into a chair, realizing that there was a serious flaw in her plan. She had never seen me so angry and talking to her like that. Goosebumps ran down her spine as she hid from my anger. Pacing the room, I finally regained control of my emotions, turned to my daughter and spoke in a venomous voice, in a voice she didn't want to hear anymore. My resentment and pain were obvious and made her feel small and guilty for her role in all this. Listen to me carefully, Brandy. I want you to leave right now. I need to be alone to figure out what you two did to me tonight. I don't want to see or hear you. Don't call me. Not right. Never. Your betrayal is unforgivable, and now I don't have a daughter. You're dead to me. Do you understand what this means? I'm not your father anymore, and I don't have a daughter. Now get out of my house and never speak to me again. Brandy was openly sobbing, with her head in her hands. Dad, please don't say that. I love you, and I want to stay here tonight. Mom and I planned for me to stay with you. We don't want you to be alone. Brandy, the level of disrespect you've shown me makes me wonder if you've ever respected me or loved me as your father. You are your mother's daughter. All these years I've been working like a horse to give you and your mother a better life, and is that the gratitude? No, it turns out I'm only here as a meal ticket and obviously never deserved respect from any of you. Between tears and sobs, she continued, Dad, I love you. Please don't say that. Just leave it to Mom and let her explain everything tomorrow. You've lived together for 30 wonderful years, and I know that you love her. Give her just one thing and she won't leave you, Daddy. She loves you. She may get her one thing, 2, or 1,000 things, but she'll never have me again. Forgiveness is beyond my capabilities. All participants will be punished, including the single man who took my wife, a married woman. Now go away. You've shown your true colors. You still have your mom. Nothing will change for you. You two are made for each other. As I said, Brandy, in my heart you are no longer my daughter. Now please leave me. She literally ran out of the house with tears rolling down her face from the pain that she had never felt before. She had never thought that her father would react like this. Had he really disowned her? For the first time, she realized that she might have crossed the line by helping her mom with this idea. She knew that he loved them both, and she could clearly see that he was angry. No, he was furious, and she prayed that he would forgive them. Jason is taking action immediately after Brandy left. I called Maggie on her cell phone, and the call immediately went to voicemail. I left her a few messages begging her to call me and come home. Then, after a few drinks and no callback, I left a few text messages with the same message. No response. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I realized that she wasn't coming home and wasn't going to answer my calls. I got tired of feeling sorry for myself and just stared at the TV, which was broadcasting the next bad news. My world turned to shit in the blink of an eye. I thought about how 30 years of our life together, the good times, the birth of our daughter, all the parties and proms, Brandy's wedding and the intimacy we all shared, are now gone forever. Before her cheating, Maggie and I still made love 2 or 3 times a week. Yes, it became a routine and was not as exciting as it was 30 years ago, but there were never any complaints, and in general, after that we always hugged and fell asleep in each other's arms. There wasn't a day or a phone call that we didn't tell each other, "I love you," and we rarely quarreled. Looking out the window, I found myself looking at the art studio I had built for Maggie to support her hobby. For the past 20 years, she has spent most of her time creating wonderful paintings and sculptures in this studio, receiving several awards for her work, which were exhibited in the room that I built for the exposition of all her awards and paintings. It has become a shrine to my wife's work and her refuge. I always felt that besides my daughter, this damn studio was the most important thing in her world. I was, at best, the third most important person on her list, but I loved her, and I was happy with everything, as long as she was happy. Talking to Brandy really hurt me. The revelation that she needed to sleep with another man took me by surprise and without the slightest warning. Apparently, all those years of long hours at work, for the sake of providing for my family, I was too busy to notice that she was not satisfied with me or our marriage. To do this to us without talking to me, and instead share it with Brandy, was humiliating and fueled my anger. I was thinking about my life, my home, and my future. I inherited my house and real estate from my grandfather, and before our marriage, they were registered in my name. There was no mortgage on the house, and that got me thinking. In a drunken state, with a surge of anger, I began to think of ways to hurt Maggie, as she had hurt me today. As I continued to look out the window at her studio, the devil sitting on my shoulder was whispering in my ear. Maybe it was alcohol, maybe the pain of betrayal or humiliation in front of my daughter, but I suddenly felt a surge of strength. With renewed energy, I jumped up from the couch and replaced my sadness with actions. I made more than a dozen trips to our bedroom, collected all her things, and moved them to the studio. All her expensive shoes, dresses, clothes, underwear, jewelry, and everything that belonged to her were now lying on the floor, in the center of her sanctuary, the art studio. For the next hour, I walked around the house and collected all the photo albums, including all our wedding photos, and put them on top of the growing pile. Then I remembered that she had things vacuum sealed in the attic. I found her wedding dress, baby clothes, and many other sentimental items, and dragged them into a pile that was now about a meter high. It's amazing how much one person can collect over the years. Then I took all her paintings off the wall and put them on a pile. The sculptures, all her sketches, and everything she loved were now part of a growing pile of things. It was already 5 in the morning, and I was still on edge. I told myself that I wouldn't do anything until 6 in the morning to give her a chance to come home or answer my calls and texts. If I don't get an answer or she's not at home, I'll finish what I started. I went through the house again, making sure that everything she owned and cared for was in the studio. At 5:30, I took a 20-liter can of gasoline from the garage and went to the studio, getting ready for 6 o'clock in the morning. At that time, I went online, canceled joint credit cards, and transferred money to our accounts, took cash out of the safe, and packed several suitcases. Then I put them in my truck, as I had to spend some time away from home until the lawyers sorted everything out. I waited another 5 minutes for her to return, and at 6:05, giving up the last hope, poured gasoline on the pile and along the walls of the studio. With a deep sigh, and after a few seconds of hesitation, I made a decision and threw a lighted match on the floor, which instantly ignited a pile of her treasures. The fire spread quickly, and before I could leave the entrance, the flames were already visible from the street. The fire quickly consumed her world and everything she loved. As I was driving along the highway, a sudden realization dawned on me, reinforced by the terrible state I was in. A terrible sadness gripped me and tears began to flow down my face. At that moment, it became clear that my once wonderful marriage had suffered the same fate as the studio. It burned down. What I didn't expect was that the fire spread from the studio to the back porch, which caught fire along with the art studio. Fortunately, the firefighters extinguishing the studio were able to put out the fire on the porch and save the house. The house was severely damaged by smoke and was uninhabitable until the damage was repaired. While all this was going on, I checked into the 6 motel off the highway about 90 miles from the smoldering ashes that had once been my marriage, and paid in cash. I didn't want to be found until I could think straight, and using credit cards would make it easier if the police came looking for me. I was awake and on adrenaline until I opened the door to my room. I turned off the phone and collapsed on the bed, falling into a deep sleep, and woke up only at noon. My phone started glowing as soon as I turned it on. I've had dozens of missed calls and texts from Brandy, Maggie, and the sheriff. A date with Maggie. After leaving Uber, I met Alexander at the restaurant, and at the same time I was nervous and excited to see this handsome young man waiting for me at the reception desk. He smiled when he saw me, admiring my little black dress, black sheer tights, and matching high-heeled shoes. His gaze was drawn to my exposed cleavage, accentuated by an open black bra. At the beginning of the day, I spent several hours at the salon to get the perfect hairstyle and makeup done. I wanted this one time to be exciting, memorable, and perfect for him. My companion looked satisfied with what he saw, and the way he adjusted his growing manhood emphasized his reaction. My confidence increased when I realized that he liked what he saw and greeted him with a gentle kiss when he greeted me. We started at the bar and sat down on one of the bar stools, and when I got up, I saw that he was looking at my nylon-clad legs down to my panties. We both smiled when he ordered our drinks. I decided to turn off my phone so that nothing would interfere with the night's entertainment. I knew that this night would never happen again, and I was going to enjoy every moment. There was chemistry between us, and we got along like we were old friends. I found myself touching his hand and flirting, which I usually didn't do with anyone, including Jason. But today I was going to unleash my inner whore and enjoy this experience. When we finished our second glass, the pretty hostess informed us that our table was ready and escorted us to our seats. Dinner was wonderful, and I enjoyed the conversation and our time together. When he asked if I still wanted to spend the night with him, I took off my heels and stuck my foot between his legs. I started rubbing the material of his trousers, massaging his crotch with my fingers, and his organ hardened from my playful teasing. When he looked down at my red toenails peeking through the transparent nylon covering my leg, he smiled and said it was time to go. Holding hands, he led me to his hotel room, which he had already booked. When the elevator doors opened on the 14th floor, I realized what I was going to do, and thoughts of Jason suddenly flashed through my head. He must have noticed something because he pulled me against his strong body. When I looked up at him, he gave me a romantic kiss, the like of which I had never experienced before. That was all it took for me to forget about my husband and marriage. Tonight I was going to be his and enjoy the experience. "I love you, Maggie." It was unexpected, and his words touched my heart. The sensations and passion brought me the most intense pleasure I have ever experienced. I can only describe it as a religious experience, and it was so intense that I was overwhelmed by tears of joy. That night we made love 4 more times and once more in the morning, and each time as intensely as the previous one. It was by far the best sexual experience of my life, and I was pleased with myself for allowing this to happen to Alexander. Thoughts of Jason started to bring me back to reality, but I tried to focus on the man who was hugging me as hard as he could. As we lay there, with the sun peeking through the curtains, he kissed me gently and stroked my hair. "Maggie, speaking last night, I was serious. You are an amazing woman, so attractive and sensual, and I think I love you and want to spend more time with you. Can we meet again?" Suddenly I was worried and tried to be gentle. "Alexander, it was the best time in my life, and you're a wonderful, sweet man, but I'm happily married and I can't do it again. It was a one-time experience, I enjoyed it, and you were great. You're a wonderful lover, and I've enjoyed every second of it. Maggie, think about it before you say no. Your husband doesn't seem to mind, and if you let this go on, I can make you very happy. Just think about it before you say no, please." "Okay, yes, I'll think about it, but it's the best thing I can do right now." With another deep kiss, he hugged me tightly to him, and I melted into his arms. If I hadn't been married to Jason, I would have been with this man in an instant. But my husband is Jason, and I was hoping he could forgive me for what I just did. Maggie is coming home. After breakfast, we left the hotel, and while he was driving me home, I turned on my phone for the first time since the date started last night and was shocked to see all the missed calls and texts. I saw Jason's message and felt a pang of guilt in my heart. This dear man was suffering and I wasn't there. Tears welled up in my eyes from the realization that his pain was caused by me. Then, before I could move on to the next text message, the phone rang when Alexander turned into my neighborhood. "Mom, where are you?" "Hi, baby, I'm almost home." "Mom, there was a fire in your house. We've been trying to call you all night, but it looks like you turned off your phone." "A fire? Where's your dad?" "That's the thing, Mom, he's missing. No one knows where he is, and he's not answering his phone either. I have a bad feeling about this, Mom. I'm almost there, I'll call you back." When Alexander turned the corner onto my street, I saw a fire truck and police in front of our house. I didn't see any damage in the front of the house and asked the firefighters what happened. "Are you the owner of the house?" "What is it?" he asked, as all the neighbors were watching me as I stood with a handsome stranger, my companion. "Yes, I'm Maggie Spencer." "Well, Mrs. Spencer, we were able to save the house. Only the back porch was damaged, but I'm afraid you won't be able to stay here until you call the smoke removal specialists inside your house. The main damage was done to a small cottage behind your house. I'm afraid he's completely lost." I felt my legs give out when Alexander caught me and helped me sit on the curb. "My studio, is it damaged?" "I'm sorry, Mrs. Spencer, she's just smoldering ashes. We will try to find out the cause of the fire, but for now the police detective has a few questions for you." I got up quickly and ran to the back of the house before Sergeant Wilson could ask me any questions. He caught up with me as I stood in front of the remains of my most valuable possession. I immediately realized that Jason must have done this as revenge for my actions. "Mrs. Spencer, do you know what happened here?" Sergeant Wilson asked. "No, I wasn't there last night, and I have no idea about anything." "Are you her husband?" "What is it?" he asked, turning to Alexander. "No, just a friend." I felt my face turn red with embarrassment when the sergeant gave me a knowing look and asked where my husband was. I said I didn't know. When he asked where I was last night, I timidly said that I was with Alexander at the Hilton Hotel in the city center. The glances cast at me by the sergeant and his assistant made me realize the gravity of my situation. I just admitted that I didn't spend the night with my husband, who is also missing. The detective now has questions. "Mrs. Spencer, are you and your husband separated? Do you know where he was last night?" "No, we are a happy married couple." And then I realized how stupid it sounded after admitting that I spent the night with another man. "Do you know where he is?" "No, he's not answering his phone." "We'll want to talk to him, so when you talk to him, please give him my number," he said, handing me his business card. I was shaking with anger and fear. Anger over the loss of my sanctuary and all the work I've been creating over the years. Everything is gone forever. The fear of thinking that Jason could be so angry to do this, and what it means for my marriage. I needed to talk to him as soon as possible. I called Brandy. "Brandy, do you know where your father is?" "No, I haven't spoken to him since last night." "Why didn't you stay here with him like we planned?" "Mom, he threw me out and said I wasn't his daughter anymore." Hearing these words, I felt a chill sweep through my body. Jason would never say anything like that, and if he did, it would be much worse than I could have imagined. When I entered the house, I saw smoke damage on the walls and felt a terrible smell permeating our home. Obviously, it is impossible to live here in such conditions. I went through our house and decided to take clothes and some personal items for a few days. When I entered the bedroom, I saw that everything was gone, and I panicked. I realized that all my clothes, shoes, and personal belongings were missing. My heart sank into my stomach as I looked at the night table in search of my wedding rings. They weren't there. And why did I leave my rings? What was I thinking? If Jason saw them on my dresser, he must have thought that I had abandoned him and our marriage. How stupid and selfish could I be? In a complete panic, I ran through the house, looking into every room, and realized that all my things were missing. I suddenly had a terrible thought. Did he burn everything? Is there really nothing left? I ran out of the house and returned to the studio to examine the remains more closely. I saw picture frames in the middle of the room and pieces of clothing that had not been completely destroyed. It was obvious that Jason didn't take my day off as expected, but in fact destroyed everything important to me and cut me out of his life in one fell swoop. I called Brandy crying and told her what had happened and that I needed a place to stay. Alexander quickly offered me to stay with him, but he was the last person on earth I wanted to see, and I told him that I needed to be alone and that please, he would leave. He was hurt by my sarcasm and left me standing there in tears. At that moment, I was angry at myself and at the man I spent the night with. I knew I was wrong, but I blamed him for my selfish act of betrayal, while the blame clearly lay with me. "Brandy, I've lost your father. Mom, don't say that. Daddy loves you. Honey, he burned everything. All my clothes, my paintings, my studio, everything. He didn't leave me anything, not even a place to live. He doesn't pick up the phone or answer my calls. I caused him the most terrible pain, and I don't blame him. What I've done is unforgivable. I shouldn't have gone on that date and just told him how I felt. We could have worked it out, but my selfishness pushed him away. If I were in his place, I would never be able to take him back. What should I do now? I have no place to live, no clothes. Mom, don't blame yourself. The fault is partly mine, and you can live with us until your house is restored. We can buy new clothes this afternoon and put you up in the evening. Brandy, all my paintings and sculptures are missing. 30 years of marriage and 20 years of my life's work were destroyed, and I was left alone. I have nothing to live for." Maggie sobbed openly, while the neighbors looked at her from the road. "My God, your father is calling me. I'll call you back." Fumbling with the buttons, desperately trying to answer the call, she almost disconnected, but at the last second she managed to connect. "Jason, is that you? Hi, Maggie, how are you? Jason, where are you? Please come home, we need to talk." "No, Maggie, I know everything from your daughter. Yes, your daughter, not mine. You're both dead to me, and this may be the last time we're talking." "Jason, no, please don't say that. I love you. You should know that." "Jason, the studio is gone. Did you do that?" "Maggie, you did it. Not me. Maybe not physically, but she burned up from your treachery and betrayal. When I saw that your wedding rings were thrown away and you gave yourself to someone else, you died in my heart. Your actions are inexcusable, and Brandy's involvement is humiliating and incomprehensible. We're done. I'll meet with the lawyers on Monday and start the trial. Please, Jason, can't we talk and work this out? You can't just throw away our 30 wonderful years. Maggie, we're talking, and I'm not the one who threw away our 30 wonderful years. You planned to betray me, gave me 2 weeks of amazing love to ease your conscience, and then cheated on me with the help of your daughter. There is no person on the green earth who could accept these actions or forgive and forget such a level of treachery and betrayal. It was pure evil, and I pray that you regret your actions for the rest of your miserable life. This is the last time we're talking. You can contact me through the contact information of my lawyer, which will be attached to the divorce decision. Goodbye, Maggie. Jason, no, wait. Jason. Jason was gone, as was the world I loved and cherished. Brandy arrived just as I was holding the phone, calling Jason, who had already passed out. We hugged each other, crying about our loss. Finally, we realized that we couldn't stay in the ruins that my house had become while the fire department and the police investigated. We need to figure things out, and we went to Brandy's house. When we arrived at her house, she explained everything to Mike, who was shocked by her explanation of events. Brandy tried to tell the whole story, but when Mike found out that his wife had arranged a date with her friend's father, he was shocked and disgusted, and anger flared up in him. Brandy, did you arrange a date with another man for your mother? And on top of that, did you know that your father would be alone? You should have known he wouldn't accept it. What kind of man would let his wife go on a date with another man? Is that how you're going to act when we're older? Will you willingly cuckold me like your mom cuckolded your dad? He was such a wonderful guy, and you and Mom were his whole world. What have you done, Brandy? I'll tell you what you've done. You destroyed a good man and forced him to do unthinkable things. I can't tell you how disappointed I am in you, Brandy. I'll contact him and apologize for your stupidity. When this is over, you and I will have a long conversation about our future together. Having children with you is officially postponed until I better understand your values. I will say it bluntly, I do not share them, and I will never tolerate such betrayal. She was shocked by his anger and surprised that he didn't understand her mother's situation. It was just a one-time date, after 30 years of marriage, for God's sake. What's the big deal? Later, she realized that the big problem was the end of her parents' marriage, the loss of her father and her mom's happy life. Soon they will all know about the consequences of her action. Jason's return. 5 long days later, I returned to my house to assess the damage. I wasn't going to file an insurance claim because I didn't want to add any more potential costs to what I had already done. At the meeting with the lawyer, I explained that the house belongs to me and is not part of the settlement. Maggie will be able to get half of our savings and no alimony. If she resists, I will file a lawsuit for adultery and tell everyone how she cheated on me with the father of her daughter's friend. I have already met with a lawyer and started filing divorce papers. Then I asked for the name of a lawyer in criminal cases related to arson. But after meeting with him, I realized that since the property belongs to me, there will most likely be no criminal prosecution unless I file an insurance claim, which I did not intend to do. In the worst case, firefighters can impose a fine, but criminal charges will not go through court unless a false statement is filed. One of our neighbors, who Brandy went to school with, called her when she saw that I had returned home and entered the house. Brandy came to me quickly. I was inspecting the damage and assessing the work needed to make the house livable when I heard the front door open. "Dad, Dad, where are you?" I heard Brandy scream as she entered the house. I did not respond and continued to assess the damage. Looking out the window and seeing the pile of ashes that had once been Maggie's hideout, I smiled. When Brandy found me in one of the bedrooms, she quickly ran up to me and hugged me tightly. "Daddy, I'm so sorry. Please forgive us. We love you." "Brandy, I will never forgive either of you, and I've already told you never to talk to me again. Now please let me go and leave me alone." "No, you are my father and you must forgive me. I am your only daughter and you love me." "Pay attention. I don't have a daughter anymore, just a treacherous woman who broke my heart." "Now you're not my daughter, please leave me alone." "Dad, Mom needs you. She lives with us and misses you very much. She cries all the time and wants to apologize to you for her mistake. Could you come to my house and see her?" "No way. The moment she went on that date and spent the night with another man, she ended our marriage. Hell, she even threw her wedding rings on the table, which means the end of our marriage. It's over and I won't talk to her anymore. You can both contact me through my lawyer. Later today, I'll buy a new phone and number, but in the meantime, you better go and be with your whore mother." "Are you really going to throw away 30 years of a happy marriage with your mom?" "No, not me. Your mother threw away these 30 years as soon as she took off her rings and went to her lover. It was you and your mom who ruined my 30 happy years, and for that I will never forgive or forget you. Now get out of my house." For the second time, Brandy ran out of her childhood home in tears. The pain of her dad's words that she was no longer his daughter was devastating and heartbreaking. Even years of therapy will never be able to ease the pain of his words. The next day, Maggie was handed the divorce papers, and she fainted, realizing that her marriage was over because of her selfish act of infidelity. She tried to fight him, went to counseling, tried to talk to Jason, but to no avail. He didn't talk to her or Brandy anymore. Mike finally got through to Jason and expressed his anger and disappointment at what the girls had done. He said he changed his mind about having children because of feelings about Brandy's loyalty and her involvement in what they did to Jason. Mike would never want to live with a woman who thinks like that, and is currently undergoing counseling for couples to see if they can save their marriage. Maggie wanted to return to the house after Jason restored it, but the divorce agreement stated that the house belonged to Jason and was not part of the divorce agreement, and she would have to find her own place. The judge eventually awarded her half of their savings and $3,000 a month in alimony for 10 years, which he was not going to pay. Maggie would have to find a job and support herself, something she hadn't had to do during the previous 30 years of their marriage. Eventually, she moved out of her daughter's apartment into a small studio apartment near the city center, where she found a job at a small art gallery as a sales agent to make ends meet. Maggie's creative freedom was suddenly in jeopardy. She would no longer be able to spend all her time in the beautiful studio that Jason had built for her. She will no longer be able to sit in front of her art projects and enjoy the beautiful view of the lake from the large panoramic windows that her husband gave her. Soon she will be too busy with work and will use all her free time to make her at least a little like her old self. All her free time was gone, along with luxury and a happy marriage, and all for one exciting night with another man. She would never find enough tears. She would never have enough tears to erase all the resentment and suffering caused by her one-time experience. No, her loving husband Jason would never speak to her again. When she heard how he had disowned their daughter, she was heartbroken. Brandy fell into a deep depression due to the collapse of her father and her parents' marriage. To cope with the pain and save her own marriage, which was now collapsing, she turned to a therapist. A few months later, the house was restored. Jason continued to pay the court-ordered compensation and, without warning anyone, sold the house. One day after the sale, Maggie went to him to try to reconcile and ask for forgiveness. When she rang the bell, a young couple met her, opening the door. "Hello, how can we help you?" the woman asked. "Yes, I'm looking for Jason Spencer. Is he here?" "Oh, the nice man who sold us this house." "No, he said he was leaving the country to start a new life. He was so sweet and so helpful." "Are you Maggie by any chance?" "Yes, it's me. He left an envelope and asked us to give it to you if you ever look in. Thanks, I'll read it later. Good luck to you and enjoy this wonderful house." Maggie sat in the car and cried, knowing that she would never see Jason again, and about the love she had so blithely thrown away. Back at her lonely apartment, she sat up in bed and her hand trembled as she opened the letter. Maggie, 30 wonderful years. I will always remember the wonderful life we lived together. You were my first and only love, and I am very sorry that I did not cope with the role of your husband. If I had known that you needed more, I would have gotten heaven and earth for you, but since you decided to find your way alone, then this is how we will end our marriage. Alone. After 2 wonderful weeks leading up to your betrayal, I actually believed that you had fallen in love with me again. These weeks have been the happiest in all the years I've spent with you. When Brandy explained how you used these weeks to distract me from your betrayal, it crushed my soul. I'm sure your daughter has already told you, but that night I was so excited to come home to give you a special evening. With 24 roses, your favorite chocolates and wine, I was going to surprise you with a new cruise on the yacht Love. When I found out that your love and adoration were fake, and your real goal was to sleep with another man, I felt like a fool and humiliated. Congratulations, you ruined me and our marriage. Because of this, I can't stay in this city anymore. I quit my job and found a new life in another country. Don't try to look for me, because I'll be offline and I really don't want to talk to you or your daughter anymore. This part of my life is over, and I will start a new life without you. It will take me years to get over the pain and betrayal you both caused. There was no way I could stay in this wonderful house without the love of my life and a wonderful daughter. Since both of them are now dead to me, I have no reason to stay here. I sincerely hope that your special night was worth our marriage and my love. I suspect that this is the case, and I am sure that you and your daughter will enjoy the stories you will share. Have a happy life, and please forget about me and our years together, as I have already forgotten. My new life has already started without you." She actually thought that there were no more tears left, but after reading his letter, she sobbed uncontrollably all night, curled up in a ball. The excitement and memories of the amazing lovemaking with Alexander became a distant memory, now replaced by regret and sadness. Now, at the age of 52 and alone, she realized that her future without Jason was bleak. She gave up her luxurious life for one night of selfish excitement. Jason came to Alexander late at night when he was leaving for his new home in Ecuador. When the door opened, Jason squeezed into the house and introduced himself as the husband of the woman he had stolen from him. Alexander tried to explain that, in his opinion, Maggie did not mind being with him, and would never have pursued her if he thought that this was not the case. But it was too late. Jason didn't accept any of his excuses. All the anger, rage, and pain he had been living with for the past few months turned out to be directed at the predator standing in front of him. The conversation was quick, as Jason used the crowbar he was holding in his right hand to smash the left side of Alexander's face. When Jason saw the 15-centimeter wound on his face, he realized that his appearance would no longer be one of his virtues and would remind him for a long time of the night with Maggie. While Alexander was lying on the floor holding his face, Jason took the opportunity to crush both kneecaps, and then with the help of a metal tool brutally dealt with his genitals. Alexander needed surgery to repair his face and 2 on his knees. He could not recover from 2 broken testicles, which he eventually lost. In less than a minute, Alexander's life changed forever. Before Jason approached the waiting Uber to leave for the airport and fly out of the country, he looked at the wincing man and said, "I give you some advice, asshole. Satisfying a married woman is unhealthy." By the time Alexander arrived at the emergency room and told the police about what had happened, Jason was already on his way to his new apartment on the beach in Manabí province. His new life was to begin without his old baggage and family. It took police detectives 2 weeks to figure out that Jason was no longer in the country, and they couldn't touch him until he returned home. Even if they had managed to find him, there is no extradition in Ecuador for assault charges. Alexander spent 2 agonizing weeks in the hospital and many months in physical therapy, learning to walk with new knees, Unfortunately, the 25 stitches on his face will remain a long reminder of that night with a married woman. He didn't know what his sex life would be like after losing both testicles, but he understood that the life he once had was over thanks to those two women who convinced him to take someone else's wife. He never spoke or saw Maggie or Brandy again. Brandy's husband, Mike, almost divorced her because of this incident, but a psychologist helped Brandy understand what she had done, and she promised to remain faithful to Mike and their future family. Mike waited 2 years before agreeing to have children in order to convince himself that his wife would never betray him, as she had betrayed her father. True to his word and her remorse, Jason never spoke to Brandy again. By her act, she forever rejected her dad and his love. After learning about Alexander's beating, Maggie and Brandy were devastated and felt responsible for the attack, which compounded the guilt and pain they caused Jason and for the destruction of their family. It was another reminder that their actions had far-reaching consequences that they did not even know about. They both realized that their delusional thoughts that if only Jason had allowed Maggie that one time, their happy lives would have continued were wrong. Their stupidity has led to the fact that a happy life has never been further from the truth. The loss of their father and husband has become a deep pain for them, which they will live with for the rest of their lives. Due to depression and age, she never found another man and lived a lonely, sad life. All her plans for a happy old age with Jason and their grandchildren were now just a distant memory. Since Jason stopped paying child support as soon as he left the country, her savings won't last long, and she'll have to keep working to survive. Crying in her sleep became her usual occupation. Jason's new life in Ecuador. I now have more than $750,000 from the sale of my house and the money I have saved over the past 30 years, minus the purchase of my new apartment. With that amount here in Ecuador, my next 30 years will be spent in comfort and peace. There are a lot of young, pretty women here who appreciate the generous American, and I like being with all of them. 6 months after that terrible night, I found myself on the beach of Porto Lopez in front of my new apartment drinking a cold beer, and came to the realization that divorce is normal. It's okay to break up. It's okay to be alone. What is not normal is to stay in a place where you are not appreciated and cherished. This will never happen again.